Okay, I'm going to give you a moment to take a screenshot of the image that we're going to use for our prompt for today, which is July 13th, and the prompt for World Watercolor Month is Cavern. This is a photo that my daughter took in Morocco, Rabat. So I thought it would be a fun photo to use. I'm going to put our camera up in the tripod and we'll get started. Okay, so I think we're going to approach this in a very loose way, which means we're not going to try to replicate the photo. We're just going to try to give an idea or an impression of what we're painting. You can go no sketch. A lot of times when artists paint a loose landscape, they like to go no sketch because it helps them be freer with their movement. I get lost in a painting without a sketch. I really like to always have something that's sort of my starting point. And so what's so cool about this painting is that you're looking from inside the cavern outside to the ocean. And so I'm going to just start making some kind of roadmap, right? So this cave has this kind of, or cavern, I should say. Cavern, I think it's the same thing. Somebody correct me if they know different. I don't really know much about geology like that. Okay, so there's kind of this ledge, and so I'm going to kind of put that here because it just gives me a spot where we're open, but more than anything, it gives me a kind of a landmark for how this goes, right? And then there's kind of this keyhole that comes up and around, and on this side, it kind of juts like this. Again, I'm not going to be super worried about making it exact at all. I'm just giving myself kind of a roadmap. That's what I like to think of these as. And if I decide to go outside of this a little bit, that's okay too. And there's like a lot of kind of different rock ledges here. I'm going to ignore those a little bit because I'm not going to paint in that level of detail. And I'm just going to bring that back from where the ocean is. And then this kind of juts up, and then sideways there's an interesting kind of highlight that happens right there. And then we've got some rock that's coming up like this, and it kind of sinks back. There we go. But then it comes back out again. That's what's kind of cool about this, is it kind of comes back and arches, and it arches, right? Okay, and then there's some, I'm going to pull a few lines up from here. There we go. And it kind of, I'm not going to do all of them by any means. We're just going to kind of bring up. And again, if it's not exact, we're not looking for exact. Okay, and this kind of comes around like this. There's some greenery on there. We'll have to decide if we're going to leave that out or not. I'm not sure. And this kind of connects, like it's curving here. All right, and then we've got another kind of layer of rock up here that's kind of interesting. Okay, so this gives us an overall shape, and oh, this comes down. Arches, it's very jagged. There. And then the ocean, there's some rocks in the background here. We'll decide if we want to put those in or not. And then our ocean kind of sits back in here. So I'm going to put that because that's my horizon line. All right, that's going to be it for this sketch. I know that this is different than it, it sits differently than the picture does, but again, we're not worried about that. This is just a basic landmark, and you could approach this with no sketch. Now we're going to lay in nice washes, but then while our paint is still wet, we're going to start tipping in a bunch of color. And so I like to go lightest to darkest, and this has got a lot of blue. There's some yellowy, golden, green undertones, but we're going to focus more on those blues and grays than we are the yellows and greens, because I think I want to keep this one a bit more monotone. This is a kind of thing that could start to get kind of muddy pretty quickly. All right, I'm going to add a little bit. I'm going to use some cobalt blue here. So I'm going to add a little bit into my wash to start with. And I'm using what's on my palette before. It's a little muddy, so I'm just pulling that up. Oh, it's great. All right, so now I'm just going to go ahead and just swipe this across my whole page. Right, this is just going to give me a starting point. I'm using a cold press paper. It is 100% cotton. We're going to kind of load this up with water, so if you don't have cotton paper, it's going to be a little trickier to do. Okay, and you can see I'm just, I need more water. Just very quickly, just filling in the spaces. And when we paint loosely, there are some tricks because it can be really hard to paint loosely. I think we want to control and be tight with everything. And so I learned bigger brush helps you paint more loosely. Holding it lightly into the back allows you to have more expressive brush movement. And so I'm going to add a little bit more blue into this puddle, and I'm going to kind of deal with the sky here. And I'm just going to, this is probably the only bit of sky work I'm going to do. We're going to keep this super light. And you see I just kind of went back and forth. It's going to be kind of darker here because there's like some rain clouds there maybe. And we might just tip in just a little bit more of that blue right in here. There we go. Our sky is done. We're just keeping this super loose, super simple. Okay, the water itself is more green and there is a hard line there. So if I start dropping in the water right now, I'm going to blur in that, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to give it a minute. I might work in down here so that I can work my way up. That way by the time I get here, this will have dried a little. Because if I paint right now, the greenish of the water is going to flood right into the sky. Okay, so this is, again, it's got kind of a green undertone. It's a little hard to see. So I think, actually, not sap green. I think we're going to use Green Apatite Genuine for this. Because it's got a bit more neutrally color. But I'm going to pull out my, let's pull some Cobalt. I'm just going to do, there we go. And then there's, we're going to add a little bit of our Blue Violet, which has this kind of purple undertone. There we go. Okay, that's what we're looking for. And down here, this water is kind of like ripply. So we're going to just make it ripply by dancing our brush around, leaving spaces in between. I'm kind of watching, there's like, it ripples in this way, and then when it comes to this corner, it kind of pulls this way. Do you see? So there's like, so we're going to kind of pull it that way. And then here it pulls in this way. So we're going to kind of just push our brush in the direction that the water's pulling. And then there's kind of flows over here. Okay. And I think that's as ripply as we're going to make it. Then we're going to do a little darkness in here and a little darkness along these edges because it's a little darker in the edges. Okay. As we get to here, it's kind of diagonal. There's some rocks there. So what we're going to do is just kind of leave around them where those rocks were, because we can go back in and add them later. Now, as the water comes out further away from where this cavern and this rocky shore are, it gets greener. So I'm going to add some more green to my mixture. And I'm going to just kind of pull in. Parts of it are almost aqua-y. But we're not going to do that. We're just going to leave it green. And I'm just holding my brush back here, not being exact by any means. And then we're going to get here, and there we go. Okay, that is how we're going to leave it. It's kind of unfinished, but we're painting a very loose. I'm going to fill this in a little. Okay, the next thing, and we're going to add some of the rocks here. And we're going to add a little bit, you know what, let's add that turquoise color because I think it'll be nice. We're going to add, I have a little bit of this cerulean blue. We're going to add that into the color we already have. And we're just going to, like right over here is where you kind of see it. There's like these waves that are coming in here, and that's where that turquoise is. They're coming in around those rocks there. But that's all. Okay, we're going to leave it alone. We're doing just a loose expressive painting. And the next thing is going to be, there's actually a little bit of turquoise in here too. Okay, I'm just looking really closely at that photo. And there's a little bit here. I think that's where the light is hitting the water, right? But as it gets towards this cavey part, it's more purpley green, right? There we go. And that's as it comes in. So now I'm going to keep my big brush and I'm going to start painting this cavern. It's got some rusty browns and greens and purples. So we're going to stick with our purple, but it's much darker. I'm going to use, this is my burnt umber. So I'm going to use some burnt umber. A nice big pile of that. We want these piles ahead of time. I want them dark because the paint is dark. So we'll go ahead and use our purple. And then I think we're going to use a little bit of burnt sienna for these caves, which is kind of hard to get a nice... Burnt sienna wants to wash out pretty easily. I love it, but this burnt sienna is Rembrandt paint. I love Rembrandt paints, but I think the burnt sienna is just not very pigmented. And I haven't tried other burnt siennas to compare. Maybe that's just the nature of the paint. I'm not sure. Now, we're going to take a little bit of our... Oops, I'm sorry. Wrong blue. We're using cobalt. We're going to take a little bit of cobalt, and we're just going to mix a touch of cobalt into everything because that keeps it all unified. All right, there we go. And now we're going to start painting. It is lighter towards the outside and darker towards here. So we're going to need to use some really dark colors. Let's get that blue. And often the darkest, most shady colors have a lot of blue in them. So we're going to do that. Okay. And I'm going to start with that. I'm going to start with the dark, which is not always how you do it when you, but we're doing loose, right? Okay. And so I'm just going to go like this. I'm not worrying about the exactness of this at all. Think of this almost like, oh, it's so black here. All right, and I'm going to get a bit more of that blue with this burnt umber. It makes this beautifully dark color. Okay. Now here, it's here. And this ledge, this front ledge. And then there's kind of a, so I'm gonna grab, I automatically go for that French ultramarine because that's what I use so much of. I'm gonna just push some blue in there. And then this has a little bit of highlighting, right? So I'm gonna kind of scuff my brush along and let those highlights stay. And it's getting a little lighter towards the front. So let's do that because you can kind of see some. And I think this has a bit more purple in it over the blue. So we're going to add the purple, get it really nice and dark. There we go. And then this kind of here has that a little bit more of that. There we go. You can just kind of see this like purpley undertone there. And you can kind of, that, ooh, look at how rich that is. That's nice. All right, I think I might actually add some of that to here because we're kind of losing some of that richness here. Okay. And as we get to the top, it gets a little lighter. We'll use a little more of the blue here. It's got some green in it too. So let's grab some, we're gonna grab some of that burnt umber and we're gonna grab our green apatite, genuine, and we're gonna start painting this part, right? And I'm not gonna worry about all of those individual ledges. This is very carved out. It would be fun to do a study of this and really work on making a very accurate painting of this, but that's not what we're doing here. what we're doing right now is just making a very loose sketch. And so how we approach that is going to be different than if we were trying to make an exact replica. And also this is where we see some of our, okay, let me grab some, this is where we see some of those lighter colors. Like the browns, it kind of is reflecting in here. So I'm going to kind of pull up. It's like the light is reflecting off of, I don't know what, off the water maybe. I'm not sure. And I'm not sure, there's got to be an opening, like where you're taking this picture from, there had to have been an opening to be able to get in there. I want to add some of this purple over here too, because I really like what it looks like over there. So I'm going to add it to here. Be careful when you add, because you can end up creating a bigger mess. Okay, let's see. And when you're painting like this, you're kind of winging it. So, you know, you're kind of following the sketch, but at the same time, you're just being expressive and popping color where you want to pop color. And it's kind of a fun way to paint. You're just kind of loosening up. We're doing all of this with this giant brush. I'm leaving a lot of space. There aren't white highlights like this so much, but I want to leave that space because it helps me to develop some just differentiation between these layers. And like, now I'm going to go back in, like this is a little darker here, so I'm going to tip in some dark. We've got our green with our brown. I'm going to tip in some dark right here, and this kind of, I want to make sure that I maintain some of the character of this, right? So we've got some darker here, we've got some darker here. This maybe kind of comes around. I'm just looking at my reference photo and I'm just popping it. So this is a really hard painting to just give an exact, like, okay, ABC, this is what we're doing, because you're kind of working and making decisions as you paint. And sometimes these work out really well, and sometimes when you're done, you're like, I didn't really like that. And so if you're this is the kind of thing that can be fun to paint more than one time. Each time you do it, you're going to get a pretty different result. Now there's a lot of shadow in here that I want to go in and add, but this is really wet, so I almost need to wait just a bit before I do that. I can kind of tip in, like I can see there's some, I can kind of tip in with this line. It kind of has like a striation that goes this way, and I can kind of tip in here. When I say tip in, what I'm doing is I'm charging. The technical name is charging the paint in. And so I'm just dipping. I've got not a lot of water and a lot of intense paint on the tip of my brush. And I'm just coming in and I'm just dotting in. And because everything is still wet, it's spreading around. And it just kind of merges with the colors that I already have there. I kind of come in here. There's a really dark spot here. So I'm just trying to create some dimension. Again, I am not even really following the reference photo at this time. I mean, I'm kind of looking at like where, okay, there's this dark spot here, and I'm gonna grab some purple, and it kind of comes up like this. There's not really any light that's reflecting there, and then it kind of mirrors over here a little, and it gets a little lighter, and the same thing here. Like it kind of comes up. You know, so this is where I'm using my picture as a reference to kind of make decisions, but at the same time, I'm not trying to follow it exactly. There's kind of a, like over to this side, there's some nice blues, so I don't want to leave those blues out. I'm going to pull some blue into here, and I'm going to pop some, kind of see like there's a back edge here, or a shadow where there's an edge of the rock, and that's got some blues in it. So I'm going to do that, and then there's some layers in here that I'm sort of missing, so I'm going to just tip some of that in there. Okay, I'm probably going to be pretty close to being done with this. Again, this is a really quick, loose sketch. The intention here is not to replicate what we're seeing, but just to get an idea of the image that you're looking at. I'm going to go like this because we've got a little bit here. Okay, now I do want to paint. We had some rocks out in the water here, and so I want to paint those because this is dry. So I'm going to just pick up this color that I have here. They're a little lighter in color than we have here, and I can kind of see that they kind of bend in like this, and they're like this. So I'm just kind of dotting along the shore here. There's another one that kind of comes out like this. So the water is splashing around this. And then there's some rocks right here. And I think that's where we're going to leave it. There are some other rocks that are coming in here. If we want to do that, they're really dark. So maybe we will. Maybe we'll take this. This is really dark and we're just going to kind of, there. Okay. I think that's it, folks. Okay, it's kind of a crazy picture, but it's really fun to paint. Okay, so here's the thing too, is you can keep going and keep going and keep going with these, but you have to at some point stop. And so if I'm going to look and I'm going to go, is there something that's not interesting? This corner and this corner mirror each other too much. I don't like the way that's flowing with my eye. I'm going to keep this one open. This one I'm going to separate a little. So I'm going to pull some of that dark purple and brown together. There's actually quite a bit of blue in there too. I'm going to add some blue. There we go. I probably should use it. Okay. Oh, there we go. Just playing with the color until I get just what I want. Okay. And now up here, like I can see there's like it kind of flat flashes like this, or carves. It's really been carved, and then it carves like this. And it's got this like kind of like really cool shape to it. So I'm gonna kind of emulate that. All right, I like that. And then there's like this kind of glow. So we're gonna push this back here. And all right, I'm leaving it alone. That's it. That is a loose painting of a cavern. These are really fun studies to do before you make a finished painting, or you can just paint like this. This is a great and fun kind of loose interpretation of something. So I hope you enjoyed watching that, and I had fun painting it. I don't always work in a loose style because I think my personality is a little more tight and controlled, but it's also a really good exercise to attempt to paint in a looser style sometimes and develop those skills. So thank you for joining me for this World Watercolor Month tutorial, and I'll see you tomorrow on July 14th. We're almost halfway done, which is super exciting. Oh, wait. July 14th. Because it's July 13th. All right. Have a great night, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching.